Hello, everybody. It's Chris from CSSTricks.com with podcast number 2, where we're going to continue on converting this Photoshop mockup into an HTML and CSS website. We started off in podcast 1 with basically the body and the menu. So let's look at the web browser window here. This is what we got. The header with nothing in it. So you see these rectangles here. This is where we hope to put those menu items. So that's the very next step, and let's just get down to it. I always think the best place to start is the markup, so that you know that you're writing it semantically right from the get-go. So let's just do it that way. We have, you can see in the mockup here, see if I can zoom into 100% so you can see it a little better. Press, history, project, team, contact. 5 items there. I know when I built this that each of these 5 rectangles are the same distance and width. So that's just good to remember for a little bit. So let's write the markup for that quick. Let's hide Photoshop. Remember this empty list element here? Well, we're going to need 5 of them for our 5 menu items. So we could just make 5. Then inside of that, we're going to need anchor links, because that's what menus are. They are links to other places on the page. Let's just have it link to nothing for now. So that's an empty anchor link inside a list element. So what was that first one? Project. We'll put the text project in there. And then we can kind of take this same template for the rest of them and fill in the rest of them. Let's see, it went project, team, contact, download, or something like that. We'll just pretend like that's right. History. Okay, so that's some nice looking markup. We'll go ahead and save that. Now if we go back to the website and reload it, it's not going to look right. They're not styled yet. So it's just going to throw that list of things over here. So let's go ahead and write the CSS for that and get them down here where we want them to be. Okay, so here we are back in our CSS file. Starting to style these links from the unordered list that we made. You can see over here. We know that they're going to need to be block level elements so that this whole rectangle can be a nice clickable area. We know that they're going to need to be probably floated left so we can get them horizontal. And we know that they're going to need to get pushed down a certain amount here. So let's just start with that. Let's specify specifically these things. UL with an ID of nav, a list element, and an anchor link. That's how we can specify this. So, like I said, display, block. Anchor links by their nature are inline, and we want to make them a block. When elements are blocks, they can have widths and heights, and they have automatic line breaks after them. So it can, instead of an anchor link just being this tiny little area that the text occupies, we can give it a specific width that it will obey. So let's do that. The width of those rectangles from Photoshop happen to be 130 pixels, I'm pretty sure. Then they need to be floated, like I said, to the left so they can go horizontal. And we need to push them down for sure, so we'll give it a margin top. I'm thinking it's going to be at least 150 pixels. We can always adjust this. That's the beauty of this. Yeah, well, let's just see where we are with just those. Reload the page over here. Okay, so we're getting there. We got them horizontal, and we got them pushed down a little bit. Looks like they're going to need to be down a little bit more. Let's try something like that. Check out. Yeah, that puts them right about where they need to be. But obviously they're not in the right place, and we're getting these dots up here. That's natural for list elements. We're just going to have to turn that off. We can do that right up here. List style. None. Check that out. That should get rid of those dots, no problem. Just to make them look a little nicer, let's make them white and give it a font weight. That's getting there. But they are not quite where they need to be, so let's get that figured out. So there's a couple different ways that we can take and push these menu items to the right and get them where they need to be. One of them would be to apply some left padding to the unordered list block element. Apply some padding left, and that would push everything inside of it to the right. The problem with doing it that way is that we have declared a static width for this. So most browsers will look at the padding you have applied in the width and then just make that element 800 and plus X pixels wide. But Internet Explorer will see that and it'll apply the padding, but it'll keep that element 800 pixels wide. It's just one of the quirks of IE in the box model, and it's just probably not a good way for us to do that, to have those discrepancies between browsers. The other way would be to just apply some left margin to it in the same way and kick it over that way. That would work fine, except for that we're using this. We already have some auto margin set up for left and right to keep it centered. So we're going to have to do something a little different. For one thing, this centering trick that I applied to this doesn't really need to be here. Really, we should be wrapping the whole page into centering, some kind of centering mechanism, instead of just giving it to the UL. Otherwise, we're going to have some main content. We're going to have to center that. We're going to have a footer. We'll have to center that. It's just easier to have a page wrap and center the page wrap and put everything in there. So let's do that. Okay, so let's build this page wrap. Fairly simple. We'll just use a div. We'll give it an ID of page wrap. We'll close the div right before the end of the body. We'll indent everything just to keep our code clean and making sense. And that's all we'll need there. Then we'll declare. We can be specific and even put div before it, just to be clean. Div with an ID of page wrap. And all we'll really need to do is give it a width. 800 pixels, I think we decided, and the old centering trick. So then we can take away that centering trick there, and since if you don't declare a width, it should just be as wide as it needs to be. We don't need to declare the width of that. Save it. Reload. Nothing changed. That's what we hope. But it should still retain its centeredness. You see how it still stays centered? That's a good thing. So that's the page wrap centering technique. Now let's get those list items moved over to the right. Okay, so now let's push those menu items to the right like they need to be. Now that that width is gone, it's less of a concern to apply some padding left. So let's apply it, reload, and beautiful. And push those menu items right where they need to be in there. Let's just, to further style them a little bit, actually give our list items a size. You see, we declared a font size, but we didn't really get too specific about it. So let's just call list items in general on this page. Let's start out with 1.0 ems, which with a 62.5% font size in your body, that makes 1.0 M units 10 pixels. So that actually might be a little small, but let's just see what it looks like. Yeah, no change at all. So if we bump that up to 1.2, save the CSS and reload, yeah, that's just looking a little meatier and nicer. And let's say we want to get rid of those underlines underneath. Let's just come down here and say text, decoration, none, and reload, and that'll get rid of those. Okay, looking good, looking good. Maybe we ought to give a hover state for them so you know that you're rolling over them. That's easy. Come down here, unordered list, ID of nav, a list element A, and then the hover state. It's usually a good idea to also declare the active state as well. Nav li A active. The deal with active is like you can tab to things on pages on websites. See how you'll come down here and certain things will get highlighted. If you tab to a link, that's different from a rollover. So you might as well, have the hover state and the active state, like you can think of it as the tab to state, be the same. So that's what we'll do here. And we can do anything we want really, but we'll just keep it simple and say that we want the color to change to yellow. If we reload, that's what will happen there. Pretty good. So I think what we'll do is throw some default copy into here and then go down and build the footer. Then we'll spend podcast 3 dealing with the main content area. So let's get started throwing that content in there, and then we'll build.